Mr. President, I have raised before the link between pornography and domestic and family violence, and I'm encouraged by the recognition across the chamber that this is an important issue. I'm also encouraged by the voices of advocates such as Grace Tame, who said recently that Australia, quote, cannot hope to prevent child sex abuse and family violence, end quote, with the unfettered proliferation of pornography and inappropriate material online. She further noted that early exposure to pornography was, quote, a clear pathway to harmful sexual behaviours among children and young people, end quote, and supported the introduction of age verification to prevent underage access to pornography. She is concerned that violent pornography has been normalised on what she calls an industrial scale. Even our Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, has been quoted as saying that violent pornography had created a, quote, very dangerous circumstance and was denigrating the nature of our relationships. And the evidence bears these statements out. A 2014 study in the United Kingdom found that the sexual narratives of young people, in an astonishing 40% of cases, normalised coercive, painful and unsafe sex. Even more troubling, many of the young male correspondents felt unsure about engaging in sexual acts which would be painful for a woman, but felt pressure to do so, saying that they believed it was expected of them, or even more perversely, was expected of them as a sign of their masculinity by their sexual partners. And these sexual narratives, these harmful narratives, were developed through exposure to pornography. In Australia today, most young people are consuming pornography 2 years before their first in-person sexual encounter. And this is not the type of pornography which we often describe as vanilla. It is usually violent and sexually aggressive. As children and young people, we learn by mimicry. It is through mimicking sounds and the associated pleasures we get in happy responses from our parents that we learn our first words. We start to walk because we see the adults around us walking. As we grow older, we mimic our peers in dress and behaviour and fashion in order to fit in. An Our Watch background paper highlights the fact that many young people initially view pornography as educative. They view it first in order to mimic and learn how to be sexually intimate. And yet what this pornography is teaching our young people is that the objectification and aggressive treatment of women is not only normal but expected. And it is not just our young men who are learning this. It is also our young women whose view of what they should expect is becoming skewed by pornography. In a study published last month, Professor Michael Salter from the University of New South Wales draws a comparison between our failure to move the dial in reducing domestic violence and Australia's great success in responding to the HIV health crisis. He notes that the success of the response to this health crisis came because it focused on identifying drivers of risk and providing support to reduce that risk. He points out that if our response had simply been to treat those with symptoms or to quarantine those with HIV, then we would have had no hope of success. In the same way, we should focus not just on assisting those who are the victims of domestic violence, but on reducing the key drivers of domestic and family abuse. The obvious first step is to introduce age verification. In a liberal and plural society, we may well disagree about what adults should be able to access, but do we really accept that our children should be having their ideas of what an intimate relationship looks like and their views of themselves as sexual beings being shaped by vendors of porn? Age verification, so that only adults who have started to form a strong sense of self, and not our children and adolescents who are still exploring who they are, only adults should be able to access violent and misogynistic pornography. After the National Cabinet meeting, the Prime Minister announced a trial of age verification, but with no time frame. Our Premier, our Minister for Police and our Minister for Women all have important roles in ensuring that this trial proceeds promptly, and then age verification is more widely adopted. It is an issue which involves us all, and the women of New South Wales will be watching to see state leadership on this issue. And then the last question remains, as a society, are we really prepared to accept that depictions of intimacy and violence should ever be physically associated?
Expired. The Honourable Bob Nan.